What our audience won't realise is that for 8 minutes we've been talking about Tog.
That's for the reference of everyone who is trying to listen to us talk about Dalek. Tog stands for the Thermal Og Scale, invented by Stacey Tog.
Yes.
And that is what measures basically how brilliant any one given object is.
Indeed, and I think this episode has
I love spreading misinformation on the internet.
I think this episode has 12 Tog.
I mean, you could argue that our entire podcast is misinformation because it's all opinion.
You're right, we can't go on.
we should stop.
We have to stop.
So, Dalek?
Yeah, what a fucking absolute banger of an episode. I mean...
Oh, real banger.
Banger-wise, I think I wrote the bangest on mine.
Indeed. Absolute bangest.
We don't even need to discuss how bangy this episode is.
Well, we're going to.
We did, for kind of clarification, before we started this podcast, we talked about how this episode is the biggest test of the early stages of the podcast, of how long can we talk about fixing an episode that's basically close to perfect, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like...
There's almost nothing that we would change.
It's probably to the advantage of being a writer and only doing one episode, is that you can put everything good in the one episode.
That was the most exciting thing we learned today.
And then never come back. Yeah, so this episode was... we normally do this towards the end, but the episode was written by Robert Sherman, and it's the only Doctor Who episode he's ever written, and I think the only episode of TV he's ever done.
Wait, what?
From what I could read online before we started, it seems like he kind of was vaguely involved with writing stuff for Doctor Who, but I couldn't find, at least on his Wikipedia page, it didn't show any other TV shows he'd written for.
And as we found out, IMDb is not trustworthy.
Yeah, that's true. They did say that Terry Nation wrote this episode.
Despite the fact he was...
Which is what Robert Sherman is clearly just a pseudonym for Terry Nation. That's why we can't find any info.
He came back, he was puppeted by like a Gelf.
Oh god, no, Terry Nation is a Gelf.
Yeah,
so like he's been a playwright.
No wonder this is so good.
He has...
He's actually a pseudonym for Shakespeare.
He has done
Shakespeare's
other television
ghost came
work.
back.
He's done some other television work. But this is the, only real big episode of TV he's known for.
I think that some people would find that to be a real shame. In relation to other TV, especially, but also for Doctor Who, because this is commonly regarded as one of the better episodes of Doctor Who in the entirety of New Who, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I also massively respect someone just walking in, dropping one of the better episodes of an entire franchise, and then just leaving and never writing anything else. Just being like, that's it.
He's wrote
one
novels and stuff.
Yeah, but not TV.
He's wrote some stuff for the extended universe of Doctor Who.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
But yeah, never.
So you're saying that I need to now read Doctor Who novels?
And he did some big.
I read a
stuff,
few of the kid ones when I was a kid. So I'm just gonna let that sit for a minute.
Is that your whole anecdote, Matt?
They were fine, but I was a kid. So what the fuck does that mean?
I'm gonna try and remember to remember. I'm gonna try and remember to put that in the description of the episode. It's gonna be something about the fact that Matt read kid books as a kid.
If only you could write the pause, that would be the best bit. Do we want to do our 5-word summaries to open?
Oh yes,
we've all got a few today. This is a special one.
I wrote four in a row before we even began.
Partly because there's so little else to say on dislikes. We've got a pad for time, right?
Well, I've actually got quite a bit to discuss, but there's also going to be a lot of discussing of the likes, I feel.
Yeah, right.
But also just because there's so much that's memorable about this episode, and there's so much additional detail that I spotted, that I was like, I'm just going to have fun trying to figure out a 5-word summary, and a few came out.
Sure.
And so mine is IMDb Resurrectee writes best episode.
Oh, okay. So that comes from our...
It's all about Terry Nation.
We spent about 10 minutes just sheerly confused at how Terry Nation wrote this episode.
But I swear
he must have written it before his death.
Oh, yes, and it was in a vault.
Even though he died before we even knew we were getting a Doctor Who reboot.
I love how we're robbing Robert Sherman of his best work.
Well, maybe Robert robbed
Terry
Nation.
Oh my God. Terry Nation last wrote in 1989, and then retired, died in 97, and then is credited on IMDb as writing Dalek
I wonder
in
if he's
2005.
I do wonder if he's credited for writing every Dalek-related episode, because that would be very funny.
Most of them, he's credited as Dalek creator.
Yes, I
But
mean,
for
he should
some
be.
reason, on this episode on IMDb, unless you like go into the depths of it, it makes it look like he's the main writer.
The creator of every Dalek-related episode. He wrote them all out ahead of time. He actually knew who the Doctor was going to be
Much
casting.
like George Lucas, he had that plan.
Unless, wait, what if he wrote a bunch of like really vague Dalek scripts that you could just plug any actor into in any scenario? There's actually thousands.
They
still
were
in the
reading the
vault.
scripts and went, Terry, what's this time war?
Well, he would have died in the period of time in real life that the Time War is.
Oh my god, he died in the time war.
Chronologically, he was killed
I
by
mean,
the
like,
Daleks in the
He
time.
met with Russell T
Honestly,
Davies and in
That's
his
actually the
deathbed
final
handed it.
Dalek episode he wrote was where the Daleks went back in time to kill him.
I actually think it would be really
Oh.
cool if you had nowadays
Oh.
had like Terry Nation appear in an episode of Doctor Who.
That would be cool. As like a fun homage type thing.
I don't think so, but anyway.
Just to put it out there, we're not going to undercut Robert. This is a Robert episode
he's
and it was a
fantastic,
banger.
wonderful.
Just-
Or the director, Jonathan O'Hearn.
Joe Ahern.
Joe O'Hearn.
He could be
Joe
a Jonathan.
Ahern.
Joe Bangle O'Hearn.
Joe Ahern.
Joe Hearn. He's a great
Ahern.
director. He did a good job.
He's only one Hearn though, not two.
Yo
Just
Hearn.
a Hearn.
What was your 5-word summary, Kamal?
Oh yeah. So my first one that I wrote was general practitioner prescribes suicide treatment. I sat on quite
That's
how to
so
phrase
good.
that for a very long time, and I have crossed out a few bits because I'd
So-
slowly improved
It
it.
was the same
The
with me.
first 5 words one I wrote down was Dalek watches Shadow of Israel.
That's really great.
This is
Oh.
2012.
Yeah.
He's
no,
gone on the entire internet.
He definitely.
It is Yogscast when they're at their peak of Shadow
and
of Israel.
I believe 2012 was 2012 when it kind of did its like permanent hiatus and then died.
I
So-
think it was. I think it might have been just before that, and it might have been 2013. I don't know. I'd have to check.
I have a feeling it was definitely in that period, which means that
It's
the
definitely,
the Dalek in this episode desperately wants to know what happens in the most popular YouTube Minecraft series of all time.
This Dalek... Wait, when did Sherlock come out? Was the Dalek left on a cliffhanger?
I don't think Sherlock was out at all yet.
Oh, really? In 2012?
I don't know.
The Dalek would have
must-
just
wait.
watched Avengers.
Oh,
That would've
no,
been-
that's because I'm thinking of when this episode came out, not 2012, the year. Yes, Sherlock
I've
was
got
out in
another
2012.
5-word one that I've just come
Yeah,
up
go
with,
for it.
which is killing machine devours all porn.
That one, you should write that down because we
I'll
might want to
keep
vote
a
on
note
that
of
one in
it.
the end as well. Yeah, we did have the conversation about the fact that the Dalek must have watched every piece of
It
pornographic content on the
downloaded
internet.
the entire internet. And we all know that about 20% of the internet is porn.
The Dalek spent like countless hours watching Meat Spin, but like in
Oh
a
my
crunched down time frame.
When did Two Girls One Cup come out?
Years before 2012.
Okay, good. Right. In that case, that Dalek should have killed itself
Two
immediately
Girls,
after
One Cup was
absorbing
like a
the...
playground rumor when I was in primary school.
27th
my
of
God.
July 2012, permanent hiatus of Shadow of Israel. So yes, the Dalek is desperate to know how it ends.
I'll save that. I'll save it for my likes. We'll keep doing this because I've just remembered another thing.
Could you imagine if for like 40 minutes
So,
we're just doing this?
Another one of
and
your
that's it?
5-word quotes.
Oh, we're going back and forth. Yes, sorry. Metal bin feels human emotion.
That's also excellent.
And then I went for my other 5-word one was a bit clickbaity title. Internet owner has disturbing dungeon.
That's
pretty
quite true.
good.
That is very good.
Internet owner. It could be internet user and it would feel completely normal, but he does own the
He
internet.
does own the internet.
Which is great because this does mean that he owns the internet, presumably from the inception of the internet, surely.
Yeah, he looks old enough, right?
Like, he must have owned it. Well, it's not just that he looks old enough, but, like, if he didn't own it from the beginning, someone else in his position, like, his predecessor
Maybe
must
Van
have.
Staten is like...
Unless he bought it?
I was going to say, I think Van Staten might be an entrepreneur who was like the financier behind Mindwipe technology and then got in on the internet whoever was behind that
And just
wipe their
wipe their
mind,
minds.
and then I think that. But he
Wow.
is also said to actually
Eat
be a
your
genius.
heart out, Elon.
Yeah,
Van
wipe.
Yeah, actually,
Van
please
Statten-
do, Elon. Rip out your own heart and eat it
No,
so
but
that you
Van
die.
Statten basically
Thanks.
is just a much, much more successful Elon Musk.
Oh yeah, because he's also shown to actually be competent at the end,
I mean, Elon,
as in like
Elon
hacking.
still
and evil
failed
stuff.
to-
Oh, of course he's evil, but he's more competent.
Elon failed to own Twitter. Like,
Oh, instantly.
Van Statten owns the entire internet, and
Already.
he also, according to our new theory, did the same thing where he just basically bought it out. And
I do
all
like
But
how
I
there
think,
was-
as the episode shows, and as Elon Musk showed with Twitter, simply owning something great does not make you great.
No, very much not so.
I like how there was an inexplicable power cut on the entire west coast of America.
That's not inexplicable. It was part of the episode.
No,
mean,
no.
also,
It's
it's
from,
like-
from like an ordinary person's perspective.
right, yeah.
Do you
Like,
know about the Texas power grid issues? So it's not that far out.
Texas is on the southern coast.
I know, but
Texas is also very big though, so it's not unreasonable for a big portion of America to just completely.
No,
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, sorry. I was being facetious and ignored your valid criticism. That's a fair point. Yeah.
Texas is fucking huge,
Texas
and like
yes.
most of Texas can go down at once.
I mean, Texas is at least 3 in size.
I really thought you were just going to end at 3.
Texas has like a TOG rating of like 50. Like
It's pretty warm there, to be fair. And if you put Texas on top of
no.
you, you'd be very well
No,
insulated.
but remember, TOG is all about insulation and like
Yeah, but
heat
if-
retention, which means that the ice caps must have the biggest TOG of them all.
Yeah, but also, if you put the entire of Texas on your head, you'd
What
be
about
pretty
the
well
atmosphere?
insulated.
and all the
on the
greenhouse
topic of
gases.
Texas, right? This episode is
It's
set
really-
in Utah.
Oh, it's...
Uh,
I thought you say on the subject
And
of
my-
Texas. This episode is really big.
my next two 5-word summaries are
Yeah.
actually relevant.
Oh
to
my
Utah.
god! Yes.
Oh,
So
right,
Utah is home to the largest Mormon population,
Mm.
right? So 50%
Church of
ish.
the Latter-day Saints.
Yes,
That's
there it
scourge.
goes. That's what they like to be called, so that you don't, call them out and then not convert.
Well, so you don't confuse them with the other Mormons.
Yeah, the Lessmans. But in Utah, you got
The few urban.
especially in Salt Lake City, which is right next to this underground bunker.
They are
You've
1 mile away.
You've got like
1
a
mile.
tremendous
Jesus.
population of Mormons. So I've
Salt Lake City is much bigger than 1 mile. Like that's in the suburbs.
I've got Tin Can Attempts Mormon Theologicide.
Love it. Excellent.
And I've got one more because it's very similar. Mormons fail to convert aliens because neither the Doctor nor the Dalek were converted, and there is a reasonable chance that Van Statten and or most of his staff are Mormon based
Yes.
on just the demographics of Utah.
I have another question.
There's a roughly
Yeah.
50% chance if they're that close to Salt Lake City, it's actually higher that
Mm.
they are Mormon.
I have another
Yeah.
question though. So the Mormons are like a weird warped version of like ordinary Christianity, right?
Yeah.
Do they still believe in like what was it, the Book of Revelations, like end of days stuff?
Yeah.
You could. I'm trying to think of an angle we can use.
What, where the Dalek is the
Yeah,
end of days?
yeah, is Judgment Day or something. But we'll get back to that at the end of the episode. If I come up with something, I'll say it.
Are you going to do any more of your variations on your 5
I can
words?
just quickly read.
Yeah,
them
no,
out.
go for it. I'd love to hear him.
Grandpa nearly writes best episode. That was before we found out he was dead.
Right, okay.
IMDb resurrects long dead man. IMDb resurrects creator of Daleks. BBC never rehires genius writer. That's one that I didn't read again until now.
That one's great. I actually really like that one.
I like how this
I think
episode's brought out the
do
best.
We'll have to do it our normal way of we'll put forwards one at the end
Oh,
to vote on.
absolutely.
Possibly.
And we each
What
vote
if-
on
I mean, we
each
don't know
one.
for certain, but what if it's that Robert Sherman is really good friends with Christopher Eccleston
Yeah.
and was like, I'm not going to write for Doctor Who again until
Until
everyone until everyone is fired or apologises.
Yeah.
I really thought you were about to say, what if he was really good friends with Christopher Eccleston and he never wrote again because Eccleston told him to kill himself?
Oh no.
That's the angle I took from it.
Actually, he prescribes suicide treatment.
Oh, sorry.
It's
So
it's a medical practice.
I
we've
see,
we've
yes.
gone on like a 10-minute tangent.
What if the doctor was called
We
the
can
general
cut most of this,
practitioner?
Sam. It's fine.
So my very first like I wrote down was
Did you do your 5-word summaries at all?
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay,
I
good.
already did them.
That's fine.
No, they were
Do
cut
you
out.
want me to reread them to you
No.
because you've forgotten they
I had
exist?
forgotten them, but that's fine.
Okay.
Reread
We'll
them,
get
Sam.
to them at
We'll
the
get
end.
to them at the end.
We'll all do one at the end then.
Yeah.
Can you
Pick one of
edit
ours
them
to go.
back in now?
I mean,
just cut them out from where they were and put them in.
Again, yeah.
Okay, I
It's
can't.
purely because you only had two and me and Matt.
Dalek watches Shadow of Israfel. Internet owner has disturbing dungeon.
Don't do it, Sam!
No, Sam, you don't know what you're dealing with.
Right, now onto
I mean, as long as I can do it at work, so I get paid.
the meat of the episode. How much did we like about Dalek?
So I had to
Oh
move
my
my dislike
God.
down on the page because I had so many likes.
How many times?
I started, first thing I wrote for the like was the Cyberman foreshadowing.
I wrote Cyberman. I just wrote Cyberman.
So like,
but-
yeah, it's nice. So obviously this is the return of one of the classic Doctor Who villains. And the Cyberman could just be there to be like, oh, here's a little nod to the other major,
I think that's entirely
really well
why
known
it was
Doctor
here.
Who sci-fi enemy. Like, Cybermen are classic, but the fact that also the Doctor has a little speech about the Cybermen,
yeah.
where he's like, "Oh, it's an old enemy, and I'm glad I haven't seen them."
Well, the
and,
phrase is the stuff of nightmares reduced to an exhibit or something.
Yeah,
like
something
that.
like that.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's a horrible thing that's now a museum exhibit, and this is terrible," and that's clearly just setting up for the Dalek reveal later.
Writing wise, it's
Oh,
actually
yeah.
really well
I
done.
never thought about that.
That's
They-
why I wrote down Cyberman
I
foreshadowing.
thought you meant foreshadowing for the Cybermen the next season. I was about to go, Sam, I'm really sorry, but they hadn't greenlit season 2 yet.
The writing that in that very scene is really well executed because Rose has right next to her an example of an alien she has met. She's got the Raxacoricophalopatorian arm, which
Yes.
may or may not be
It's the
Slitheen.
Slickeen arm.
It could be the Slickeen.
Also, this is meant to be 7 years in her future, so
Yeah.
it could actually be
It's
an arm of a
most,
Slitheen.
most likely just scrounged from Downing Street's rubble, right?
Yeah, the bit that wasn't guns.
And or whenever they came back in the Sarah Jane Adventures, but I don't quite remember the timeline for that anyway. But it would have been roughly well timed for this, even though it's actually not written till
Although
later.
the arm was relatively gunge-free.
It was quite gungeless.
Which is weird, because Russell T Davies was involved.
It was. He does love a bit of gunge, that man.
And it's the great thing about working on Doctor Who is you get more and more gunge.
That was his quote on a recent
on
episode.
a recent behind the scenes short on the YouTube channel, Russell T Davies actually goes, and then it was like, and more gun, and more gunge.
There wasn't even that much gunge in the latest episode that I watched with you guys.
No, there wasn't any.
Yeah, it's all CG gunge.
But yeah, the fact that you've got Rose with a Slytherin arm, and she's like, oh, it's a Slytherin arm, and then the Doctor goes up to a monster that you've not seen if you're a new viewer,
Yeah.
and then gives you a little bit of, this is one of my oldest enemies, which perfectly foreshadows the fact we're about to see another one of his oldest enemies, but also is a good setup to introduce the Cybermen as a concept, because when we were young and the Cybermen did show up in Series 2, it was like, oh my god, that's one of the Doctor's oldest enemies, because we knew about them.
And
now.
obviously before the redesign.
And I love that it's before the redesign, because it would have been kind of lame if they already had a brand
And we
new
don't
design.
get the proper old design again until Capaldi.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to think
In,
about
like
which
one of
design
the best Cybermen episodes.
this is. This design, I think, is Revenge of the Cybermen. I think it's a
I
Tom
wouldn't
Baker
know.
story. I remember really researching this as a kid because I love the Cybermen.
That's fair.
It's not got like the thin pipe bits on the head. Instead, it looks like that kind of like hose tubing, which
Right.
looks worse. So it's definitely from the Fourth Doctor thing, and it doesn't look like Earthshock either, which is the Fifth Doctor. So I'm trying to remember like where on Earth they could have got the head from. I don't really remember what happens in that episode.
If we ever get to Classic Who, you're going to have to make a note to try and pinpoint where that head came from.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we'll re-release this episode with a little like harp sound
It'll
effect,
just
and it'll cut
you'll be
into
like,
the...
amendment. The
It just sounds
Cyberman
like
head
that.
is from this episode of this season of Doctor Who.
Can we hire Brian Butterfield? What's his name?
Who? What?
The only
Brian
way
Blessed?
this is ever happening is if we have an
That would be
editor
good.
I
hired.
think it'd be fun.
I
if
am
we
not
Brian
coming
Blessed.
back here and doing this.
No.
Oh God, no! I'm not being serious. Or am I? Anyway, so
Well, it's not you that has to bloody edit these things.
my first positive was actually before that. It was the fact that the intro was very succinct, unlike what I just said there. I like. Oh,
like the
why are
cold
they?
open bit.
Yeah, why
Right.
are they in this basement? I don't know. Signal drew us off course. Fantastic. A lesser writer would have wasted time.
The Doctor's like TARDIS is often finicky. Like, it will just sometimes put him somewhere where he needs to be.
Yep.
As opposed to... I mean, you could very much argue that for the last 2 episodes we watched.
Yeah,
the
that's
fact
also
that they appear a year late, but also exactly in time for a potential world-ending alien plot, feels very much like the TARDIS slightly influencing things, because it's like, oh, we're better off... If we're going to this place, we're better off going to here then.
Like, the TARDIS thinking of being alive is a big running part of this season.
It's got all of time and space, so surely, like, a year is, like, relatively nothing.
Yeah, right.
But because they're not going for a specific year in this episode, it doesn't really matter that they've turned up in a random place at a random time.
Next thing I've written down is instant clear arsehole.
What?
Oh, Van Statten.
He's instantly clearly an arsehole.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes.
He's not a transparent.
His
my
arsehole
second,
is
like,
instantly clear.
My
on
second,
screen.
comes a little bit later, but it is related to the fact that he's clearly an arsehole, and that's the fact that he has a painting of himself behind his desk.
I want that so bad.
It's a funny thing.
Not one of me, one of him.
Once again, we're treated to like a very nice, quick intro to the characters. Very clear who everyone is. There's a good amount of like just dialogue that sets everything up with all
Van
of the
Statten
characters' personalities.
as an arsehole as well is very much like Mr. Sneed in The Unquiet Dead, or The Unquiet Dead if you're
That's yeah.
in that like there is a greater threat than
I'm
him.
glad this is spreading.
Yeah.
But like he's so fun to hate, and he's like your main human antagonist, I guess, of the episode. So I like that aspect a lot.
God, you're reminding me of a much better episode, The Unquite Dead.
Then when we get down and the reveal of the Dalek, if it hadn't have been revealed in the trailer...
Did we talk about that?
We did,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
If it hadn't have been revealed, the reveal itself in the episode is really good.
Not to jump ahead, but that is my one change for the episode. Rename it. That's it.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's
Rename the
point.
episode. A bad name. Entirely because
it should be called
it.
The Metaltron, because that's what it's called for half the episode.
Or
anyway.
Prisoner or something. I don't know. Survivor. I don't know.
Good.
Like maybe something more creative than anything I've just said.
Or The Cage, which is the
Kill
name
yourself.
the name of where it's actually
Indeed.
Kill yourself.
Kill yourself.
I
Maybe
like,
it should have been one
It
of
should
our
have been
5.
called The Order.
the moral.
Because that's the order.
The thing is, the moral of the story is assisted suicide should be an option.
Yeah. Especially if you have feelings.
Yeah.
If you start having feelings, you should consider
If you're scared,
euthanasia.
you should consider killing yourself.
You,
That's the
you're
message
giving
of
me
the episode.
such perfect ammo for the description of this episode, because it's going to be really silly.
The the reveal, the whole scene after the reveal is so good, with the back and forth between the Doctor and the
And
Dalek.
the fact that it's revealed in the dark, so it's just a blue light, which you could mistake for not being a Dalek, and then the 2 little bulbs on its
and
head
then at
start
that point,
going.
people who know what it is
It's
know what it
wonderfully
is.
And the Doctor fittingly starts reacting there and doesn't wait for the reveal for the audience who don't already know
Well,
what
we
it is.
also... Daleks
Because,
never
like-
had glowing eyes before this is a thing, so...
No, but that's fine. But the light bulbs on the head.
Oh,
the
no.
Doctor reacts the moment he sees
definitely.
that.
I'm saying it kind of reinforces.
Oh,
that you
yeah.
wouldn't
No,
reckon.
I mean, and also how many aliens have a light on them in Doctor Who anyway? Just a singular light.
There's a fair few.
It's a really it's a simple design. It could be anything at that
Oh,
point.
it was a Silurian, a 3rd Doctor Silurian.
With just a little
With
eye.
a little...
But yeah, I don't know. I think that's really neat. The way that it's a really nice... It kind of throws the ball to old fans to react with the Doctor, and lets new fans kind of have the fear sink in of the Doctor's like, oh shit, and you don't know what it is yet, if not for the next time trailer.
I agree.
I still have this really distinct memory from watching it on the telly as a kid, and I don't know if we'd seen the next time trailer the previous week. I feel like it was where we...
I mean, a week felt like a long time at that age as well, so you might have forgotten.
I remember my mum's reaction, because she watched Classic here.
Yeah,
Tom
yeah.
Baker was her Doctor, and her reaction to the Dalek I still remember, and it was like, because it's so good.
Yeah.
It was like, oh shit, like...
This
Shouldn't say that because I was a child.
This is a superb reimagining of the Daleks.
It really
this
is.
is the best thing
Yeah.
they could have ever done with them.
I mean, to jump around in the episode, with regards to reimagining, it's not the first time a Dalek has been purposefully shown to go upstairs to get over the old joke.
Yep, they did that in the last time they appeared in the Seventh Doctor.
But equally, still really nice that they had it for people who didn't know about that one, because there's going to be people who
There's
going to
be people that fell off.
Everybody in the
And
playground
or
was
hadn't
talking
seen
about it, yeah.
And then also, like,
It's also well enough set up in this episode that if it's the first time you've seen a Dalek, it's still shocking.
yeah,
somehow.
right? Like,
Yeah,
Like,
because-
like gives me chills, and I've
And
only
also,
ever known Daleks to be able to fly.
It's kind of the
Yeah,
moment
right.
where Rose. It
No,
seems
so-
like Rose has been really clever, and you're like, oh yeah, she's got it. She's worked it out.
Because she is, so far in that episode, she's, more knowledgeable than the average human. She's like at this
And
part
we've seen her
in the
being plenty
series.
competent in other moments.
Yeah, but I feel like this is where she's now confident. Like she actually can
Yeah.
kind of talk the talk at this point in the series.
Rose is really, really getting better every single time. She's such a good
But
companion.
yeah, to jump back to that scene after the reveal, when you've got the moment where the Doctor's like, "We're not the same."
Yeah. Oh, I put the
Which
"we
is
are the
kind of-
same" moment is one of the things I put as my likes, because that whole conversation.
Yeah, where
there,
it's like last time I counted,
Ooh.
and the Doctor's like, "We're the same," and I was like, "We're not the same," only to then be like foreshadowing for the later fantastic moment of "You would make a good Dalek,"
that's
which is
one of the best moments in Doctor Who for me.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think it's
yeah.
the iconic line. I mean, I know we say "kill yourself," but that's the iconic line. Of
I
this
have
episode, is,
both
"You
of
would make
those
a good
both of
Dalek."
those quotes were the two quotes I wrote down before the episode started, because I was like, this is so memorable that I don't need to rewatch the
Yeah.
episode to know that they're going to be my top two in my
One,
head.
one positive that I've got talking about the Dalek there in its line was I love how the Dalek is actually a character.
Yeah, it's
an
deceitful.
individual.
It's deceitful when
I've-
it speaks to Rose.
But
So
it
I've
also
written that
clearly
down
has
later. Yeah.
It clearly has its own opinions and thoughts. I'm talking even about this individual one. I
Yeah.
like this one. I like its panic and sadness that it hasn't got anything else of its race left. I like its pride when it absorbs the internet and it gets
I
its
do
power
have-
back and it's shooting around. I do
have some
like it as a
misgivings
character.
that I'm going to talk about in a bit about how many emotions should a Dalek actually display.
That's the
Which
thing with
we've
Cybermen
talked
and
about
Daleks.
this before, about the fact that Doctor Who brings up a lot of. I say before, this is outside of the podcast.
Oh,
Me and
yes,
Matt
yes.
have talked about the amount of robots, especially, but also Doctor Who villains
Mhm.
that in sci-fi are written to be devoid of all emotion, bar one or two that are convenient.
And then clearly display the entire range.
because they're written by people,
I
and
mean, at
also
least
because it
Spock's
makes for good
excuse is that he
writing.
just
right,
lies.
yeah.
Spock's excuse is just that he's
Oh,
lying.
That's fine with Spock. Vulcans are just fucking liars.
Yeah,
But yeah, when it comes to like machines,
yeah,
maybe-
it's hard
maybe-
to write.
yeah,
But I
maybe
will-
the
emotionless.
original
I will
Borg are
bring
the
that
only
up for-
kind that
I have
don't.
a couple of questions about that when it comes to changes, but I'm not sure if I agree with changing anything either. So I just thought I'd preface it with this is going to come up later for me, because I would like them, especially later on in the series, to be more
Yes.
consistent.
In fact, I think this episode and Parting of the Ways are the only two perfect characterizations of Daleks ever.
Okay,
I
interesting.
think that they never get it correct ever again. Not fully.
I mean,
I am prepared to eat my words.
No, that's fine.
the
I
great
like
thing
the,
here
I like the
is
statement, because we can maybe come
it's
back to it
also
one day.
like, for me,
I'll have a formal apology for 20 minutes before Doomsday.
this is one of the least amount of like things we see a Dalek do in New Who. But I think it is the most powerful a Dalek ever feels,
Oh yeah,
and the most
I-
dangerous a Dalek ever
one of my
feels.
likes is Dalek OP.
Oh, no. I will only disagree with you because similar to what I just said, and it isn't all of what I meant with what I said before, but Parting of the Ways, I think that it perfectly delivered. We'll get to that episode later. That episode perfectly delivers on, oh, what if there were more of them? Because they are just as threatening. It's no spoiler to
true.
say that the Daleks just win.
One thing
right?
that I've felt a lot on the last time I went and tried to fully rewatch Doctor Who, up until where it was at the time, I was going through these kind of earlier seasons that I'm more familiar with. I've got more nostalgia for, and I found that in Russell's entire run as showrunner, the Daleks feel actually quite consistent. It's just that like after this episode, they introduce future weapons that can one-shot them.
Yeah.
There is one of those in Parting of the Ways,
Mhm.
and then in Torchwood, they've scavenged alien tech, and they have a couple of these weird railguns that can basically one-shot a Dalek.
I was about to say, hey, it doesn't one-shot them. They're just teleporting them back to where the Dalek mothership was. But then I remembered, no, Jack does have one that he kills one Dalek with.
And they only kill one.
Yep.
And
It's
but
wonderful.
The consistency internally for Russell's writing of Daleks, as in for him as a showrunner, is pretty on point. Where it slips, as you'd expect, is because other writers, especially under different showrunners, have different ideas and it strays. And also I find that, like, after they've introduced a weapon that can one-shot a Dalek, it's harder to make them feel like they do with just one Dalek in this episode,
Mhm.
when there is no inclination of anything that can stop it, apparently.
Oh, I think, I agree. It's
Like,
much
the
better.
Doctor tells them to outfit everyone in the facility with a gun in some way or another.
Mhm.
And that doesn't help at all. He's like, you might stand a chance if you give, like, all the lawyers and accountants guns
Which, to be fair, is also because those people ignore his advice. We see later in Passing of the Ways that when they actually do listen to him, they do blind one Dalek for a bit.
Yeah, for a few seconds.
And then
So-
that's it.
To change the position of the conversation slightly, then when we cut to Rose and the little British guy, who's
Adam,
met-
I think his name is.
His name is Adam Mitchell.
Okay.
Is it actually?
I was actually, on my way to work today, I made sure to look up the
I've
Wikipedia
written-
article
I've
for this
written
entire
down-
episode, and I
Okay.
absorbed
I've
it all.
written
Much
down-
like the internet.
Just like a Dalek would.
I watch so much porn.
I've written down one thing, which is mansplaining. Because
He do be
Oh,
doing
he's
that.
so
he's
bad.
so mansplains, and the face Rose pulls as he's going on about aliens, and it's saying, "Oh, you just wouldn't believe it. It's all real," and she's just like, "Yep."
I
And
I
she's
think
like,
it's
doesn't
really funny.
interrupt him because she's
What, are
she's
you a
like, "Oh, he's a
genius?"
pretty boy."
Well,
I think
yeah.
she's looking at him like a cute little puppy dog, like,
Yeah.
oh, you think you're so sophisticated, which I find
Mhm.
really funny.
So I thought that was a great.
And that, I think, really leads into her wanting to show him
yeah,
the universe. The whole conversation at the end, where she has that back and forth with the Doctor, and he's like, oh, he's a bit pretty. I feel like this is the first we see Rose becoming kind of so changed by the adventures she's had that she's kind of looking at another human the way that the Doctor looked at her in the first episode.
yeah.
Where he's more of like a fun little pet than a like. There's no romantic chemistry between them at all, like Rose and Adam. It's
Yeah.
just like this is my little project for now. Like, I
Yeah.
want to show him the universe and see how he reacts and kind of razzle and dazzle and whatever. It's funny.
I get you, yeah. I'm excited to watch the next episode to see how that continues to the end of the arc. It's
Yeah.
only a 2-episode arc, but
Yeah.
I'm interested.
When the Doctor is being tortured, and he's still going on, just his main focus is still just the terror of the Dalek.
I mean, he killed all of the Daleks and all of the Time Lords to get rid of just the Daleks.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I mean, ooh, no.
It's just-
That's not established till later. They do point out that the Time Lords were just as bad by that point
and
in
it's
the
my
war.
favourite thing
But
ever.
that is far from here established.
That's true. I'm meaning entirely internally in the Doctor's
Oh, no,
head.
totally.
Like,
But the-
obviously retroactive.
But like at this point, this is what we've been led to believe, right? Is that in this episode he kind
No,
of
that's totally
explains
true,
that
yes.
that's his position.
But I think that really
Oh, yeah.
helps set up the fear of the Dalek for anybody who doesn't know what the Daleks
Definitely,
are.
definitely felt that way as a kid because it gives you that like kind of guttural fear of like we don't know what to do here at all.
Yeah. And then
Like our authority figure has crumbled.
obviously Rose
Yeah,
goes in
right.
to see the Dalek, and then the Dalek is really clever, like you were saying
It's
earlier.
deceitful, which
It
I don't know
uses
if
deceit.
I like, but I kind of love at the same
Mhm.
time.
No, I love it being a sneaky fucker. It's great.
Like,
They're
we're
meant
meant to
be
have-
geniuses.
We're meant to have the smartest like killing machine in the universe.
Yes,
So often they're dumb dodgems.
Oh, they're morons
that's
a
true.
lot of the
No,
time.
I prefer
yeah.
them to be. I prefer them to be intelligent. I like that it's deceitful. I think that that's the part of its personality I wouldn't change.
Mm.
But it
because
is.
I
it
think
does,
you can be
it does-
hateful and deceitful.
Yes, and I think deceit is in this case is more in the same way that someone who's exhibiting like psychopathy can be deceitful and manipulative,
deceit
right?
isn't an emotion.
It
Deceit
doesn't
is
have
a
to come
tool.
from an emotional background. It
Yeah.
can come from a purely kind of like operational.
Deceit is
thing.
a tool in the same way that being friendly is a tool. So it knows how to do it. It's not an emotion.
It doesn't feel friendship,
Well,
but it
it's
can display friendship.
But it's also
to
not
get
an emotion,
results.
right? Yeah, exactly. Whereas,
I think my hang-ups actually mostly come from the introduction in the next season of the Cult of Skara, and the point of them is to be creative.
Yeah.
And the fact that
And they're just
Daleks
not really,
in general,
except for Sek.
outside of this episode, are not often that creative.
Mhm.
It's this episode and the one in the Matt Smith series where the
Victory of the
that's the
Daleks in
one.
World War II.
That's
I love that episode.
That's the two episodes where I feel like a regular Dalek actually has
And
some creativity.
in Victory of the
behind
Daleks, that is inspired by Power of the Daleks, which I've heard you listening to, I think.
I also
Similar
think
thing.
it's really good that the Dalek is at first it's just looking for orders, and it's only after realizing it's not getting those orders, or it's going to need to that it starts being deceitful and taking action and being a bit cleverer.
That's true. That's a really good point, because it's been sat there silent and they've been torturing it, and it's just been putting up with the torture.
Yeah.
Mainly because its vessel is damaged, and what something I didn't notice. So I've got a couple of likes here that relate to this. Firstly, I put the battle damage was way more detailed than I remember from being a kid. There was like panels that were open, but you could actually see loads of wiring underneath, which they'd have had to place there because normally the panels are just stuck onto the external bit of shell. So that was nice. And I guess the way I remembered it is I remember the scene of it healing the casing using by draining the power of most of America, which was great.
Which is so good.
I like that they can do that, but it takes so much energy that in terms of like human power sources, it drains like basically half a continent. But I guess that's how I remembered it regenerating after Rose touched it, and that was wrong. It doesn't regenerate any of the chassis from that, but it does say that it's basically reconstructing its cells. It says like something about cellular reconstruction when it's assimilated her DNA. So I guess that implies that the actual Dalek inside was really fucking hurt.
Yeah, really fucked up.
From the Time War, not from them
From
doing
falling through
chainsawing
time.
its shell.
Well,
Because I'm sure that does not hurt it at all. Even though it screams.
I think it probably did hurt it.
They might be able to feel through the shell, I don't know. It's implied, I guess, in this episode.
I think they are, because even when it opens up, you can see it's got a screen or a keyboard or whatever, but it's also got tubes stuck in it.
I think that I prefer the like vessel that the Dalek is in to almost be as much a part of it as the squid thing inside. It's basically just
it makes
not
a lot
a mech,
more
it's
sense
just one being.
Well, it's like how your
case.
prosthetic leg, if you've lost just the leg,
It's
it's
like if you had
basically
prosthetic
you.
skin.
Right, yeah. Oh, God, I guess, basically. Yeah.
The whole regeneration effect I thought was great.
I thought that was really nice, actually.
And then like the effects you get after that with when they're all shooting it and the slow of the bullets and they're disappearing.
They just disappear. This is a question that I wanted to
They're
bring up,
meant to be melting.
Because I think later they do the same effect and they show the bullets kind of disintegrating in like a one of the like future episodes where they show the same thing, but I don't remember.
Maybe, I don't
I
remember.
thought I've made that up. But I always, in my head, I remembered the bullets kind of disintegrating.
No, me too. I think I remembered it going like white hot and going or something. But I
These ones
reckon
just disappear.
I'm making that up.
But then in my head, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if the Daleks, because they're one of the only other time traveling races that we know, if they have some kind of weird like temporal shield, and that's what's happening. It's like essentially like phasing those bullets out of the time stream that it's there.
This is a Time War
really
Dalek.
good.
It's outfitted for the Time War.
I think that would be really neat. I think it should not be able to be shot with regular bullets purely because it's got time shields.
That would have been
But that
sick.
is a completely wild out there
loved it.
suggestion. So
Within that
you know,
same
Would've loved
scene, the skeleton effect. When
Oh
people
my
get
god,
shot,
we talked about this
we were
during the
gushing
episode.
about that. It's so good.
That
It's so
stays the
silly.
same
It's
pretty
just-
much through
it's-
all of New Who.
It's
It
just
does.
silly enough.
It's just about kind of retro feeling enough
Yeah,
to
right.
feel like when I was a kid, I was like, this is like what it always looked like in the old school Doctor Who. It must have been. It didn't.
No, it didn't. They did use the negative.
But they
from
did
a
do the
certain
negative,
bit
yes.
on, but it was shit.
But they weren't gonna get the cool skeleton effect as well as they did.
And definitely
in New
not
Who.
tracing it
Yeah.
quite so well.
It just looks perfect. It's the exact right amount of like schlocky for what is essentially just an insta kill ray.
Yeah.
This is a thing I'll bring up later as well. Is how exactly does the Dalek gun work? Is a question I have.
A C, an M, a G, and a W.
Oh, big wins for
Kungwa.
Murray Gold.
Kungwa.
I think where it hits for me the most score-wise is when the Dalek first flies, and then when the Dalek opens its shell to sit in the sunlight.
I mean,
Oh my god!
Where I
the music
wrote
was
down
nuts.
CMGW was the stairs. I didn't mention the stairs again because we had talked about them already. And
also,
then
the "you would make a good Dalek" moment. This is
the next
this is
thing I've
more of a
written down.
director thing than the score thing, but there was a choice in the direction or the editing probably to cut the score for it to say that line, which I think is very meaty.
Yes.
I did have this is a really out there side thing that I liked. Van Staten states that they salvaged something from a ship somewhere, that they were able to derive a cure to the common cold.
Oh yeah.
Now, I don't remember if come the modern, as in like current iteration of Doctor Who, the last couple of seasons, if they ever actually canonised COVID. But if COVID isn't mentioned in modern Doctor Who, the reason is because they had the cure for the common cold in 2012. They easily could have cured COVID. And Van Staten's whole point was to sit on those things until he could make the maximum profit. They waited until the pandemic was like staring everyone down, and then they just cured COVID. So that's my theory for Doctor Who lore, is that Van Staten's hoarding is directly the reason why COVID I don't think has ever been mentioned in Doctor Who, even though it would make for a really good episode, because, or at least some analogue to it probably would.
Yeah, but it would have been the Chibnall era, and he would have fucked it.
Yeah,
That
basically
is true.
so.
He would have Chibnalled it.
It was more that not only in the Chibnall era, but I don't believe Ruby Sunday has mentioned living through COVID, which she would have done.
No, yeah, indeed.
So it's and they're the most recent episodes we've watched, as the first handful of that season. So and I don't think Donna did in those specials either.
Isn't it wonderful that in this episode, you know that during the events, somewhere in a suburb of London,
I have written down the Fear Her connection.
yeah, is that David Tennant's Doctor and Rose are busy fighting a scribble.
They're fighting a scribble, not necessarily at the same time, but
Oh, no,
this
not
very
necessarily.
No, I'm going to say that it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally prefer
There's no
it
reason
to-
it couldn't be.
No, I mean, no, exactly. I don't think they say a date.
No one on the
in
West
this
Coast got
episode?
to watch
No,
the
they don't.
Olympics
It's just
because
2012.
the entire Western seaboard
I
was
did.
down.
I did look up the population of Salt Lake City when he said that it was 1 million. Cause
Yeah.
I wasn't. I was like, I wonder if that was a good prediction. They were pretty much bang on. It was actually quite impressive.
Oh, nice. Fair.
It got to from what I looked at, it was predicted to have reached about 1 million in 2010 as well. So they
Alright.
were predicting ahead of time by about 5 years, and it was actually really close.
Oh, the Dalek is so cool.
So I that's a big tick for the writing.
Continuity.
Of this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done.
Well done,
Robert Shearman. You're from the future. That's your secret.
I like when the Dalek opens.
Oh, I love
I
his
really
design.
like- I
Now,
It's a lovely scene.
Have they ever opened a Dalek before that way?
Not that way, no. They blew the top off of one in Resurrection
Sure.
of the Daleks, and it looked like a blobby green thing.
This is something that I'll
I
come
think-
to later as well. Actually,
It had no face. It had no eyes, no mouth, nothing.
yeah,
Now that's the thing, is that
I-
the way the Dalek faces look, I think we're going the same
yeah.
way. The way the Dalek faces look in Passing of the Ways is excellent, because they are people who have been blubbed.
Yeah,
Whereas the Dalek in this is a pure Dalek, presumably. It shouldn't look like it's got a face. There's an
don't like that they use the same model for this Dalek and the Emperor,
but I have
because you see this Dalek after it has mutated to the point that it's completely changed.
that's what I mean, is it's growing a
maybe-
human face bit
maybe-
to it. Because you
Hear
can see
me
its
out,
mouth
mate.
and its shrunken eye.
What, in this one?
Yeah, this one you can
The
see it's like
Emperor-
sort
Oh, I
of-
don't know if I
The
noticed that.
Emperor maybe survived by becoming a bit more human.
That would be weird, but I'd be interested if it did. I mean, we could always throw that in there. But
I'm fine with it ultimately.
They use the exact
but-
same model, I'm pretty sure.
Yep, the only mutant
So
that
they
doesn't
fill
look
his
the
tank
same as
with
Dalek
beans.
Sec.
Yeah.
Dalek Sec's CG model looks completely different. It's just got one central eye. There's no indication of a mouth or another eye that are deformed and smaller. It's green, unlike this mutant.
Yeah. I mean, they changed the Dalek designs a couple of times in future
They
episodes.
did, but then
as well.
Khan just looks like this Dalek.
Yeah, I just feel like the consistency is a bit off. With
Completely.
them. I think this one should be a little bit weird, and the other ones should maybe look quite a bit different.
Mm.
I love that Rose protects the Dalek.
I love that her
Only to
conversations
help
with
it
it
die.
Oh, that was
earlier
wonderful.
as well, where she first begins to feel empathetic for it, and all of the things that the Doctor has taught her come out there. That kind of that empathy, that getting to know a completely unrecognisable creature on a human level, and then trying to support it in any way you can, and that leading even up until the conflict with the Doctor at the end is really, really nice. And especially the it's changed, and then what about you, Doctor? What are you turning into? Oh, that's
So
a good moment.
Mm-hmm.
And he's holding this future gun, which we don't know if that future gun could have killed a Garlic. It's a pro-vampire weapon.
Oh,
you
it's
see.
a stake. It would have shot a really big stake into the Dalek.
But
It's a shame that they didn't do vampires that well.
that
Yeah,
it's
they were
true.
fish.
This is the second time that this has come up.
We mentioned
We're
Vampires of
excited
Venice
about
more
vampires.
than we mentioned Vampires of Venice more in our recordings than we've ever done in real life in the last 5 years.
It's because we're talking about Doctor Who for like an hour at a time.
That's a fair point, but even then, we just
And
man, I
I'm
forget
spending
that episode.
several hours editing it. Oh wait, no, that's just me.
That's just you.
Oh, I hate my life.
So far, I hate Doctor Who. Sam hates his life. Come on.
Wait! I hate my life. You know what I should do?
You should kill
Oh
yourself.
my god, no!
I really
If you
like
edited in a gunshot, I
leading
swear.
up to the
I
scene.
just won't speak for the rest
Yeah,
of the
you're
episode.
just done.
I'm gonna kill myself, put in a gunshot, and now I'm gonna stay silent.
You just got it, and there's a bit of silence, and me and Kamal just continue as normal.
Yeah, just as if it never happened, and implying that one of us held the gun.
Oh. No, he killed himself.
Yeah, but how are the audience gonna know that? What are we
That's
gonna
a
do?
fair
Draw
point.
ourselves on the thumbnail, not shooting Sam?
Especially if I
This
get
is
cut
not
off in the middle of a
incriminating
sentence.
Shit. Well, shame that you have that gun there, Matt.
It's mad, audience. He just vanished. It was amazing.
It was the time shields.
It's the Time War.
But yeah, so one of my favourite moments.
That is how I see the Time War working. Is that randomly a person will just vanish and everyone will forget them
Ooh, I have a
because
thing about that.
they
Actually,
got blipped. Yes.
One of my other I'll get to just a quick. I'm going to come back
Yes,
to that
yes,
in just a
of
second.
course.
So one of the things I really like leading up to the confrontation between the Doctor and Rose is the Doctor going through Adam's secret gun stash. Fun little bit of character and lore development of he's trying to fortify himself in case Van Statten wants to wipe his mind by stockpiling what he thinks is weapons, and he's told Van Statten is trash.
Yep.
And the Doctor going through it and saying, this one's broken, and Adam just having like a panic attack in the corner is so funny. It's just a really good visual
Hair
dryer.
And then,
Which incidentally is my favourite.
and then there happens to be a really a functional weapon in that pile, apparently. The thing that I was going to get to related to your view of how the Time War should work, where kind of people were being erased from time all over the place because everyone's going back and forward and trying to stop each other and counteract their stuff. The Dalek can self-destruct in this episode. We never see a Dalek do this again.
Yeah.
But it's implied that because this one Dalek can do it, that they all can do it. And I kind of like the idea that this was built in, because other people capturing Dalek technology, I don't think is massively something that they care about. I don't think there's much of the technological arms race in the Time War, so much as a time race, as it were, of trying to outwit the opponent's
trying to
time
go
travel.
back further.
Right. So the Dalek being able to kill itself with this weird bubble thing, I kind of like that being a way that they're like, this timeline didn't work, let's all reset, and they like all self-destruct to cause something to go wrong, so that their opponents have to abandon that front as well. And
that's
so I
really
like
good.
the idea that it's, at least my headcanon for it, is that it was meant to be used in a more tactical way.
That's fun.
That's really cool. So you get news from your Time Dalek, who's in tune with the time stream, tells you, hey, this plan doesn't work, but we can scupper them by killing ourselves now before we do it.
Basically, like to use it as a kind of an advanced retreat version, because it really doesn't matter if an individual Dalek dies. They are quite... They're not hive mind, but they do operate a bit like a hive.
Well, they're all
in that
clonal.
they kind of have a driving motive, and this one acts like that very much. It's kind of like if you had a single member of a hive mind gain complete autonomy, how would it behave?
Well, they're bred to take orders.
It requires
they
orders.
Do not
it gets to the point where
function.
it begs its mortal enemy for orders because that's the closest thing it has to an authority
I really
figure
love it. Only
in the
wanting-
absence of its own
I
side.
love it only to wanting to talk to the Doctor and kind of just having this rapport with him because, they're on the same level. I may hate you, but you're above these things.
Yeah.
I like it.
I've got one more last thing that I wrote down for likes. I don't know about you.
I'll scan mine in case there's anything
Yeah,
I've
I'm gonna
missed.
scan
But
mine.
but
The
I
very
think
last thing
I've got most
is
of it out of the way.
I like the way that Van Staten gets ousted at the end to go to a city beginning with S. But I do, and this brings me on to possibly a dislike or maybe just a change. I would like the entire vault thing to not be filled in with cement and maybe appear again in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
The idea there's this massive vault in America full of random alien bits of tech.
Yeah.
That could be really
And
fun
some
to
of it's
revisit.
functional. At least it would be nice if I'm going to do the thing that I'm probably going to become known for throughout this podcast, which is trying to find what areas where we could tie it in with some of the spin-offs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be a good thing to mention in a Torchwood episode.
It would be.
Jack's American. He definitely has connections to America. I don't see it as unreasonable that he would have gone to check it out. He was definitely around in 2012.
Maybe they use the space to set up like the time agents in the future.
That would be cool. I like the idea of it tying in, especially if it is something that's mentioned in relation to Jack.
Yeah.
So I just think it would fit well. And then you could have a funny joke about Jack kind of like maybe surreptitiously swaying some Mormon missionaries. It'd be quite amusing.
I like that.
It'd be quite funny.
Have you got any more likes? Are we good?
I think I've covered everything except for stuff that could fall into likes, but is in my changes area for its own purpose.
yeah.
You know.
I've got one more good one, which is just I really like how this is the final full reveal of what the Time War was in totality and what the Doctor did. Love it.
It kind of
really good.
and you see him go to his most extreme because it's him kind of bearing the most private part of it, which is the atrocities he's committed.
Yep. Which is this is the end of a good 6-episode arc.
Yeah.
About that for now.
It's a nice amount of build-up, I think, in terms of giving the audience some slow introduction
And
to
I can
it.
put my book down now because there's no changes and no negatives.
I've got one dislike, but I think you've written it down as well.
Is it
Mark.
the love line?
Yeah.
It's the only change I knew that I would want to make to this episode going in. Again, it's part of something me and Sam have kind of agreed on, which is we don't want the love bit to be love this early in the
I'm
series.
with that too, but I also am just so okay with the
to
Dalek
clarify,
not understanding
it's
humanity.
the line where the
Dalek
says, "Will you not save the woman you love?"
Well,
That's what the Doctor
Yeah.
says it to
Dalek.
Dalek, but yes,
That's what I said.
that is that.
I said the Dalek.
You can go. You could. We're actually
Editor
on recording.
Editor Sam, go check.
In fact, no. Sam's going to edit Dalek
making me do
over
some
that. No,
editing.
over that. So he was right, and then he'll edit us saying Doctor, and so we'll be wrong. I am okay with that because I think that Daleks, it's gaining emotions, but it doesn't understand humans not too well.
I think the only way that I could forgive it in terms of narratively is that it has absorbed Rose's feelings.
and
it could
assuming
be-
they're reciprocal.
Okay, yes.
But this does, I mean, if we're to take future Dalek episodes and how Daleks and Time Lords work into account, as we'll find out in Daleks in Manhattan, the DNA of a Dalek and a Time Lord directly transfers the morality of good and evil into
Yes,
you,
it seems.
which I think is a terrible plot point, and
think
I
it's
will
awful.
be changing.
Agreed.
But if you take that as canon because it is kind of established here and then comes through later, sure, it's absorbed Rose's emotions via that and therefore has some insight into Rose in particular. And if we want to go with our slightly one-sided or kind of not quite mutual attraction, where the Doctor likes Rose a lot but not quite in that way yet, she's still just a human to him, albeit a particularly interesting and exciting one, and Rose being quite infatuated with him, you could play that quite well there, and it would kind of work for me. And that's why I don't think it needs to change. Like, this is a an episode that could go without changing, and I'd be really happy with it still. I think that goes for all of us.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
But I would change that.
Except the name. The name. That's my only change.
that's
Change
fair.
the name.
Change.
But I would change the love line. I just don't
see
think it needs to be
dense
said.
the positives list is.
One of the things I put a question mark with this one
Yeah, right.
is so it's briefly mentioned that somebody touched it and caught fire.
Yes.
Why didn't it heal using them?
Oh, because
time travel.
Yeah, it's explained. It's actually explained in series 2 why, unfortunately, but it absorbs like the like extra energy that time travelers.
He does.
Pull
The
around.
Dalek does
But
also
I
kind
think-
of offhandedly mention it in this episode,
Right,
but it doesn't explicitly
I think-
link it.
Just don't mention the guy who was on fire.
Yeah.
Just remove that one
No,
throwaway line.
Nah,
No.
I like it. I like
No,
it.
you're wrong.
I
Just
like
remove
it.
that
I think
line.
it's cool because that line stuck with me as a kid.
It's interesting because they do have the every time and because it happens.
You
twice.
could have it just be like the last guy who got near instead of touched.
But then it's like why aren't people just combusting when they
Well, I didn't know. The thing is, someone would have tried to touch it, right?
Yeah, I think
And the shield made it
works
go.
for me because whenever they show a time traveler touch a Dalek shell, it leaves a kind of a hot handprint, and it does make a sound effect as if it's really hot to the touch.
Yep.
And I like the idea that the only thing that's protecting them from being like fucking immolated by it is the fact that there is some weird
Time stuff.
stuff.
Ah.
What's the thing like the Leidenfrost effect? Is that the one where where a droplet of water can kind of balance on a really hot surface?
I know what
because
you
it
mean.
creates,
Yes.
a tiny vacuum of
I
steam
know
between
about
the
it.
two.
Yeah.
It feels almost like that. I feel like I've
anything, it's
named the completely wrong scientific thing there,
Maybe.
but you know.
In
you
fact,
know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Yeah, I've heard about the effect. I just don't remember its name. But I do think that maybe in this episode, no, just have someone try and stop the Dalek by touching it and trying to shove it, and they just absolutely burst into fire.
Yeah,
I
I
loved
don't know. I quite like it as just being an offhand comment, and then it's kind of Rose in this
To be fair, that's
situation
also
is
quite
just special.
grim.
But then I do kind of get what Sam means also in that the last one, if the last person that touched it set fire, why does the Dalek immediately try to sweet talk Rose into touching it?
maybe it's
If
senses
the
can
Dalek
see
can
it.
tell that Rose has travelled through time because of some sensor it has, that makes immediate sense because it doesn't really talk to anyone else.
I reckon that's what he's.
But the
going
moment
on.
she's nice to it, it's like, I can manipulate you
To be
into
fair, it doesn't
giving me
start
what I want.
speaking until she mentions the Doctor.
Okay, yeah. And the Daleks would know that the Doctor tends to travel with human companions, so actually that would make sense.
I
And
much
she does
prefer
say,
it
"My
just-
friend, the Doctor."
No, I much prefer it being clever and interpreting that. Oh, she might have what I need. I
Yeah.
much prefer that. I like it being a
The-
clever.
I mean,
little
what's the
fuck.
worst case scenario for the Dalek? She just sets on fire and dies, and it's killed one of the Doctor's friends. Like that's a win. I'm pretty sure from its perspective.
The other change.
I mean, the last thing that does that, what was it? The Genesis arc. I think. It
I
was,
want
is the next one?
the new owner of the internet,
Yeah,
whoever she is.
I forgot her name.
Oh,
But
it is
Diana Goddard.
Diana Goddard. That is her name.
I want her to come up
In the
again,
future, yeah.
linking into the vault still existing.
I would like for her to be.
like the American part of UNIT, maybe.
I would like for her to be
Well, Torchwood.
because she's complicit and she
Torchwood
works
is
with Van
explicitly
Staten, and
British, to be fair.
you can tell at the beginning that she's saying things that she thinks he wants to hear, so that she doesn't get fired and have her mind wiped. But also because she works with him and because she's high up there and immediately usurps him, I get the feeling, and there's the implication that she's basically just as bad as he is.
Mhm.
Maybe slightly less ego-driven, but it's hard to tell. I would like, if she comes back, to have that at least partially confirmed. She can be better than him, she can be a more functional person, but I like the idea of it being this is still a private organisation that has its own goals, and it's a bit more like how Torchwood first comes across, where they're a bit evil.
It could.
I would like that.
Yeah.
Selfish.
Sure, but like just
Shellfish.
have it come up again.
Yeah,
is
no,
all
I'd
I'm
love
saying.
that. If she came up again as kind of like a maybe antagonist, but you might have to work with her in a pinch
I
type
think
of
that'd be
character.
So-
good. Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit cutthroat.
I'm
I
down
think
for that.
would be fun.
Any other
Corporate.
changes?
So I have some changes that are more discussion elements. Firstly, it's the Daleks can only hate. It's brought up at the beginning, and then it's kind of implied that they maybe can do a bit more than that. It definitely feels grief in
I was
this
gonna
episode. That's like the one the one emotion that I think it definitely displays
Well,
is
also,
some amount
it
of
does feel
grief.
pride as well. As soon
Pride,
as it's
yeah, I
grown
suppose
back.
so. I feel like
I think the Doctor's actually just exaggerating because he hates them.
yes, yeah, I
Right.
think you could definitely say that. I think it's showing some amount of grief works here as well. You could argue that it's not so much grief, but lack of objective purpose to exist.
Yeah,
Because its purpose is to receive orders, as we've discussed.
it's just a soldier.
And now it can't receive orders, and then it quite quickly resorts to asking its enemy for orders because that is the closest thing to an authority figure it has
Mhm.
left.
It
Its
recognises the
greatest
Doctor as
enemy.
an authority figure.
Yeah.
Oh, I really love
And I
this
think that
episode.
kind of makes sense. And then its assertion that the Doctor would make a good Dalek and its kind of kinship it feels with him
Oh, that's good. Yes.
kind of works. So maybe it's not feeling grief, but what it displays to me comes across as similar to grief because it's
Mm.
processing a kind of an emptiness in not having a purpose anymore.
It is quite telling that the Dalek never sees the Doctor again until it's already changed quite a lot. I'm interested to see how it would have reacted face to face to him
Yeah,
if it had ran into him in the vault.
I suppose what I want to get at with this whole the Daleks can only hate thing is I would like to keep track of this going forwards as we see more Daleks,
Okay.
and I would like for the different emotional ranges of the Daleks to be something that we always take into account, because in some places it will feel appropriate, like when they have a concept of religion with the Dalek Emperor, which is going to be its whole thing in the end of this series, and is treated as a weird anomaly that freaks out the Doctor a bit because they're displaying something new. So any subsequent time in later series where I don't have as strong a memory of how the Daleks specifically behave,
Mm.
I wanted to put it out there. That's something I'm going to be keeping track of because I
Well, they're
think
not
it's
the
well
Kotaskara
established,
either, yeah.
and it's kind of always implied to be the case every time they appear. So it's not like they're trying to break from that, but it does seem to keep coming up for me.
No, fully agree. I think that this is the strongest depiction of the Daleks ever. The problem is that the other episodes didn't stick to it quite as strongly, except
Yeah.
in my opinion parting other ways.
I've got another thing of the Daleks' ray gun, its death ray thing, its laser beam. I'm unsure how I would like it to work. It kind of does everything. The way it shoots humans, or the way it kills humans specifically, it's always seemed like a kill beam. You know? It doesn't seem to do any other
It
damage
doesn't burn a
except
hole
for
in their clothes
just killing
or
them.
anything, yeah.
And it's an effect thing for the sake of editing, but people often scream after or during they're being
Well, it's
killed.
implied that the ray hurts and that the Daleks made it that way because they're fucking evil.
Yeah, which
Like,
entirely fair, and
The
I like
Daleks
that.
in season 4 shout "exterminate" in German
Yes, they do.
because they want you to know.
Yeah.
That, they want you to know in your language that they want to kill you.
But I
So they
suppose
are evil.
I suppose the question is, I'm not sure if I like the fact that it can shoot a hole in a concrete wall with it at the end of the episode, even though I think the visuals of that are beautiful. Of the light going down it, I think it's a really, really well constructed scene. But I don't know if I like the gun being more than a... Because I think the Daleks would create a gun that is just a kill beam.
I
And
think-
all it does is
I
it's a
think
turn off
especially-
Presumably
light
it's
ray.
just got a lot of settings.
Especially
Yeah,
since
no,
we
that's
also
what's
see it
implied.
just shooting a wall earlier in the episode.
And it just does a
leaving
scorch
burn
marks.
mark.
Yeah.
Now,
But then also it's conductible via water, as if it's
Yeah.
electricity.
so that's a shock gun.
Because the effect that kills people is like electric goes
Yeah,
on
it doesn't
as well.
make him skeletonized.
Yeah, but they didn't want to bring back the static electricity.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that was amazing. God, I love that. Again, hate to bring up my lizard, but a similar problem watching Godzilla movies you've just brought up to me of his ray just does whatever the fuck the writers want it to do in the moment. Is it explosive? Is it not?
I don't think I would change the fact that it does all those
No,
things,
me
because I
neither.
think I don't actually like the conducted by water thing, but Rule of Cool, it's so good in that scene. I would never change that scene.
I was wondering
really like it.
why doesn't the Dalek just shoot everybody? But then rewatching the scene, it's like, oh, it's showing off.
It's showing off and being efficient at the same time.
Showing off, being efficient, and it wants the others to see.
I suppose it's being efficient to show off the fact that it doesn't need to even shoot everyone to
Yep.
kill everyone
Also,
in the room
point
instantly.
of pride. It's like I'm the last Dalek. I gotta do us proud. I
Yeah.
really like.
Yeah.
I like the way it is characterized. This specific one.
I
like
think
it a lot.
so. I think I wouldn't change it, but I'm gonna probably again keep a running note of every time a Dalek Ray does something new, because I think it'd be interesting to note how many fucking settings they have.
So
It's gonna feel like a sonic screwdriver.
Oh, I'm down
eventually.
for that. Yeah, let's keep a tally. That sounds fun.
the onto the quotes.
Oh God. I'm gonna
I
jump
have-
in
I
with
have
the
one-
quote I have.
I have one more change that is
okay,
a question
yeah.
for both of you.
Mm-hmm.
There is the bit where the Dalek presses Van Staten against the wall, and Van Staten is trying to say whatever he can to save his own life, and he ends up justifying all the torture because he just wanted to get the Dalek to talk,
Mm-hmm.
and the Dalek says, "Then hear this," and says "exterminate," and then pauses and says it 3 more times before not shooting him because of the whole humanization thing.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think it should have said "exterminate" and instantly shot him,
That would have
and
been
then
incredible.
proceeded to be more human after that.
No, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
I know that
I really
the
like that a
setup
lot.
for him getting his mind wiped at the end is actually really good. I like that one of his underlings usurps him really well at the end.
Mhm.
It was one of Sam's likes that I fully agree with. I also think it would have been just as powerful, and because you are made to
You
feel
can still
for the
end up with
Dalek.
her in charge if he instantly
Exactly.
gets killed.
You're made to feel for the Dalek. So there's something about the fact that it's a living being that's been tortured. It should just kill its captain.
I am also fine with it repeating itself 3 times as kind of like, because we've established the Dalek kind of has sass and a bit of a sense of humour. It probably was like, oh, I'm going to talk for as long as I can before shooting you, and then it was just Rose who actually did save it.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. I
Like,
don't
it's
know
such
if I
minimal
change it. I
changes,
wanted to
right?
get you guys' opinions on that.
Yeah.
I could be with you, but it could
I don't
also
think
not
it makes
change. It's fine.
That much difference, but
It really does.
I think your
it does
version
also
hits
rob us
hard.
of a bit that we both like as well, which is why I didn't want to say I would change it.
Somewhere beginning with S.
Somewhere beginning with S.
intrude our window.
Is that your first quote? That was a joke. Matt. You got to laugh louder. I've got, I think,
4
4
quotes.
quotes.
I have 2
I've
quotes.
got a few more.
Okay, go. You do yours first.
Exterminate.
Oh, I'm with that. Mine is also a separate instance, but exterminate.
Nice.
No, it isn't. But
Arrogant space dustbin.
Oh, that's nice. I saw you write that one down.
It's just this great big pepper pot.
that was really good too.
That's got to have been purely to get that visual in the heads of all the new
Broadband?
children.
And also to get the joke out the way.
Broadband?
Roswell.
Roswell. Oh yeah. What when they're is that them describing where they got everything from?
But he just goes, broadband? Roswell.
He was just listing 2 separate things.
Yeah, it's unrelated to anything else.
But they just found broadband somewhere.
Yeah, broadband.
What's your name?
Roswell.
Yes.
Oh yes. Now, I saw you writing that one down.
Elevate.
Oh, that's a good one.
Of course. Kill yourself.
Kill yourself.
Kill yourself.
Why don't you just die?
Why don't you just die and then rid the universe of your filth? Is the next line.
Oh, and I've also got the excellent. You would make a good Dalek.
Yeah. So that was
But
2
then
of
also,
mine, obviously. 'cause
Why
we
are
wrote that
you
down.
alive?
Why are you alive? Does the Dalek at the end say, "Why am I alive?" as well? Did they do that twice?
I don't
I don't think
so,
it did.
But the Doctor is like, "Why are you alive?" And it's like,
Doesn't the Dalek ask that? Oh, is that exactly what you just said?
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway,
I have 2 quotes that you didn't list. I obviously had the "kill yourself" and "you would make a good Dalek" ones because they are the memorable ones. I have the "blimey, you can smell the testosterone" because I just liked the.
Yeah.
I liked Rose like doing a little bit of dropping a bit of sass on the kind of the big dick competition, and I also have "I am contaminated."
that was great. With the little fearful rocking.
Just it like freaking out. Oh, it's really funny to me. I don't know why.
you have any quotes?
Broken hairdryer. And what you're gonna do? Throw your A levels at him.
Oh yeah, I told you to write that down.
Those are
because we both reacted
consecutive
to it.
quotes.
Okay.
It's brilliant.
So,
I wouldn't have
Picking a
written it
quote?
down.
Picking a quote. Right, okay, so this is difficult because they're all good. I am going to go for you would make a good Dalek.
And because I know
It's
yours
the
is going to
best
be
quote.
better, Sam, I'm going to say broken hairdryer.
Kill yourself.
If I never said anything again in the
I was
recording.
going to suggest this, actually.
I'm going to have
Why
to go...
come on to kill
I was,
yourself?
no, I'm sorry. That bad timing. Sorry, Matt. You don't have to kill yourself.
Thank you.
You just go live, buddy.
If like loud sounds of me walking away, the door shutting.
I was gonna suggest for these bits where we vote on the stuff, should we have a rule that we can't vote for our own one for the sake of trying to force it to
I mean,
make
probably.
to go quicker?
I think probably, but I don't think so ultimately. I think
Okay.
voting for yourself should be
I'm
absolutely
gonna
allowed.
vote for Sam's
I
one.
was
Me
gonna
too
vote for
also.
Kamal.
I
Okay.
vote for Sam.
So the final quote of the episode is "kill yourself."
Excellent, good.
We don't need to really state it, but it's an absolute bang.
It is an absolute banger, and we need to choose which 5 words.
Oh,
So if
God.
everybody wants to repeat their 5-word quote, we've all picked one of our 5-word
Indeed.
quotes now.
Now, do I think that the porn one or the grandpa one?
My 5-word quote is Dalek watches Shadow of Israfel.
I love that.
Because you're going that angle, I'm going to have to go IMDb Resurrectee writes best episode.
I'm going to go for my first one, which was General Practitioner prescribes suicide treatment.
And that one I think might
that
be
has to be
strongest.
it.
I think that's so
well,
good.
let it be known that I definitely voted for Sam's one because I thought that was actually really funny and I hadn't considered the date aspect of where the episode's set.
It is one.
And
He
that
downloaded
really hit
the whole
home.
internet, which means he must have
He-
downloaded
No,
it.
absolutely
He
right.
has watched every single episode of
No,
Shadow
this
of
Dalek,
Israfel.
this Dalek downloaded an illegally ripped copy of this episode. It was doing a Spaceballs the movie. That's why it knew what was happening.
So, you should recommend this episode and share it with anyone and everyone that you know who would make a good Dalek.
I think that you should share this with everyone you know who should kill themselves.
So know that if you are watching and or listening to this...
Well, any good Dalek should kill themselves.
That's a
true.
they're one and the same.